Well, today I am chatting with the incredibly inspiring Anita Moorjani, who is the author of the amazing book Dying to Be Me, which talks about her journey from cancer to near death to coming out of a coma and experiencing what was a complete, almost instantaneous healing. But no introduction that I give would ever do this story or Anita's book justice. So, Anita, would you, in your own words, give us a brief rundown of the events that inspired this beautiful book?
Thank you, Jess. Thanks for that beautiful
My
introduction.
pleasure.
Uh, well, I'll start with actually what happened was that I had cancer for 4 years. It was lymphoma and it had spread to the point where I had swollen lymph nodes from the base of my skull, that's back here, all around my neck, down my chest, under my arms, to my abdomen. Basically, it had spread throughout my entire lymphatic system, and I'd reached the point where I was dying. The doctors had said that these were my last hours, that I wasn't even going to make it through the night. I had open skin lesions. I had tubes stuck into me. I was on oxygen. I had an oxygen tube. I had a nutrition tube, and I had all the drugs also pumping into me, and I couldn't breathe. My lungs were filled with fluid, and basically these were my final hours. But unbeknownst to anybody, I was in a coma, by the way. I was in a coma, my eyes were shut, but unbeknownst to anyone, I was actually aware of everything that was happening all around me. And it was like a heightened awareness, even a more powerful awareness than of normal awake state. And I was aware of not only everything that was happening around me and around my physical body, but even beyond. Like, doctors were down the corridor talking to my family that, that these were my final hours and my organs had now shut down. And I heard every word they said. And I was aware of things happening quite far away, like my brother rushing to get on a flight, hoping to catch me before I actually died, before I took my final breath. I also then started to become aware of other things to do with, well, my father had passed away 10 years before this had happened, and I became aware of his presence as though he was watching over me. And I also became aware that of a feeling like as though I was encompassed by a feeling that I can only describe as unconditional love. But the words unconditional love doesn't even do it justice. It was something much, much more than that. It's something I'd never experienced in physical life before, because it was unconditional. I mean, to the point of, it's like for the first time in my life, I felt as though I didn't have to prove myself. I didn't have to do anything to feel deserving or worthy. I was loved just because I existed, no other reason. And it just felt amazing, like I had come home. And I felt like all the pain, all the fear of the last few years from the cancer, everything was gone. It had all lifted. I just felt really light and free and just liberated. And it was just the most incredible feeling ever. I reached a point where I had the choice of whether I wanted to come back into my physical body or not. And at first there was absolutely no reason for me to come back to the physical body, because my body was dying, I was suffering, my family was suffering. There was no reason whatsoever to come back. So I didn't want to come back, but it was almost instantaneous that I seemed to understand a lot of things. Like, I seemed to understand exactly why I was at that point in my life, in that moment, what I had done in my life, like all the decisions I'd made and everything I'd done in my life up to that point to put me in that moment of life. I seemed to understand exactly, like, everything I'd done to bring me to that point. I understood exactly why I had the cancer. And I understood that I was actually an amazing, magnificent spiritual being. In fact, that we all are. We're all amazing, magnificent spiritual beings. And we forget, as we make our way through physical life, we forget, and I had forgotten. And so I had always forsaken myself. I'd always put myself last, been afraid to be myself. I'd always been my own worst enemy. I'd always forsaken myself and made myself small so others could feel big. And in that realm, I understood that I basically wasn't supposed to do that. I was supposed to be who I am. And and it was almost instantaneously that I seemed to understand that now that I understood the truth of who I am, if I choose to go back into my body, that my body would heal. And as if to endorse that understanding, my father, and actually I encountered my best friend who had also passed on a couple of years ago from cancer, they impressed upon me exactly that now that you understand the truth, go back and live your life fearlessly. And so I started to come out of the coma. I was in the coma for only a day and a half, about 30 hours. But I started to come out of the coma, and very, very rapidly I started to heal. And as soon as I started to come out of the coma, I knew right away that I was going to be fine. Internally, I was already fine. I knew that my body just had to catch up, my physical body. And within days, the tumors shrunk by about 70%, and they moved me out of the intensive care unit to a regular room. Within weeks, they couldn't find any trace of cancer anymore.
Wow. What did your doctors say about that?
They were blown away. They didn't even know what to write in my medical records. They just didn't even know what to put in the records. And my doctor, who was treating me, he actually said that. He said, this is really, like, truly remarkable. And he said, I don't even know what to write in your records. And he sort of made the gesture of almost like throwing my medical records in the bin. It was like, what does one write in a case like this? Wow. So it was quite funny. And then I was, let me see. So I was released from hospital in about 5 weeks. I was still going back as an outpatient, for follow-up tests, checks, treatments, and the thing is, I didn't feel I needed them. It was the doctors that kept insisting, because they kept saying, the state you were in when you came in, it's impossible that the cancer has just disappeared. And so they kept giving me appointments, like follow-up appointments, come back, we're going to check this, and come back, we're going to check that. And we want to give you more drugs for this, just in case, to prevent it from coming back, because cancer doesn't just disappear like that. So I had to deal with all of that, like they just wouldn't believe it. And finally they gave me a full body PET scan, and they gave me a full clear bill of health, and they said it's just one of those things, it just happens. And and your original question was what inspired me to write the book?
Yes.
Well, originally I just started to write myself just for cathartic reasons, to make sense of everything that happened. And then as I started writing, I thought I just wanted to share it on the internet with other people in case it could help them. So I was just sharing it freely, for free, on the internet. And I wasn't even using my full name, because I wasn't sure I wanted everybody to know exactly who it was. So I posted it on a website on near-death experiences. The owner of the website, when he read my story, was so blown away by it. He said, this is one of the most remarkable stories I've read. He said, do you mind if I ask you some questions about the medical side of it? Turned out the owner was an oncologist. So he wanted to know more about my medical records. So I gave him the details. I even gave him the name of my doctor, my oncologist. And he did a bit more research, and he said, this is incredible. He asked other oncologists whether they'd come across such a case, and they said no. And then another oncologist in the US somehow 2 different people forwarded him my story, which they had found on the internet. So this story on the internet, so I posted it in the hope of helping people. It started to go viral. And so this other oncologist contacted me, and he actually flew to Hong Kong, went to the hospital where it happened, because he was skeptical and he wanted it. He wanted to prove whether it was true or not, because he thought, if it's true, there's information there that I can share with other cancer patients. So he actually flew to Hong Kong. He went to the hospital where it happened, checked my medical records, like really scrutinized them, everything down to the doctor's notes. And he said to me, whichever way I look at it, you should be dead.
Wow.
He said, it's really scary. And he took copies of the stuff and he sent it to other cancer institutes, and they said, no, they've never seen someone come back from such a late stage. So he actually wrote me a report, a testimony, and he said, you should write a book and share your findings. And if you do write a book, he said, you can use all this stuff that I've said just to endorse it, so people who are skeptical from the medical side don't challenge you. He said, I'd back you up. So I thought, okay, that's great.
That's really good. What do you think caused your cancer? You've mentioned fear.
Yeah.
So
it's huge. A huge part of it is fear, and it's living my life from the perspective of fear. Now, fear is a big word because certain fears are not necessarily negative. I mean, you want kids to fear crossing in front of traffic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So fear is a huge word. So to be really specific, what I mean is living life from a place of fear rather than a place of passion for life itself. So it means making every decision based on what you don't want rather than what you do want. So it's like when I used to choose to eat healthy foods, it wasn't because I loved life and was passionate about life and my health. It was because I was afraid of getting cancer. It was because I was afraid of eating. I was afraid of illness. So I would have wheatgrass juice and stuff like that every morning because I would fear the consequences. I started to fear that, oh my God, people are getting cancer, I've got to prevent it. Rather than, I love my life, so let me do what makes me healthy and let me follow my passion, my joy, my love. So even if when I worked, it was always about what's going to pay the bills, what's going to make me enough of an income to pay the bills and keep me out of debt and so on, rather than, okay, what do I like to do? What do I really want to do? What will, give me a reason to wake up every morning? So even the people I was with, it was things I used to do for people. It wasn't from a place of, I love these people, I want to hang around with them, and when I do things for them, I do it because I love them. It wasn't that. It was more coming from a place of, I want them to like me. I'm afraid they might not like me, so I better do this. I'm fearful of people thinking I'm a bad person, or I'm not a generous person, or not spiritual enough. I better do this because this makes me more spiritual. So it's really changing your perspective, and that was the person I used to be, but I realized that's not how life is meant to be lived. It's about, who do I love? What do I want to do for people I love? What do I want to do for me? I love myself, so what do I want to feed myself? So even if I eat a piece of chocolate and drink champagne, I enjoy it. I don't feel awful about it later that, oh my God, how could I do that? I'll just enjoy it. So, and even if I drink wheatgrass juice and take supplements, it's like I'm taking it because I want to live long and healthy, because I love my life.
Yeah. Wow. So it's really like the purpose behind the action. I know the main message that I got out of your book, coming from somebody with cancer, is that I need to let go of the struggle and need to let go of, put trust in the perfection of the present moment, and to stop doing things because of the fear of cancer and do them because of love for myself. What would you say to people with cancer like myself who are healing naturally? Because our main goal is to heal, and I guess our days can be devoted to getting better. And I guess we can find some resistance with our bodies because we've kind of got that struggle of we want to get well so desperately. So we're always doing these things like all this juicing and enemas and taking pills and all of that because our main goal is to get well.
Exactly.
What would you
So
say to us?
I would I would say that when you're doing these things, first of all, change the perspective a little bit and tell yourself, I'm doing this because I love my life, I value my life. So change it from I'm doing it because I'm fearing the cancer, or the cancer's there, or the cancer's coming back, or whatever. It's you are not your cancer. Stop making it about the cancer. So if you can kind of start to eliminate the word cancer from your vocabulary, from your head. And when I say eliminate it, I don't mean force it out because out of a fear. Again, if you consciously think, oh, there, I said it again, it's that fear again.
Yeah.
So it's that. But it's more about introducing a different perspective. The best way to dispose of unwanted thoughts, programming, and things like that is not to push them out of the way because they just push back. The best way is to introduce new ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
And don't even worry if the old ways come back every now and then. Just remind yourself, oh, but there is a better way. And when you find that the new way feels better, you'll want to look at it the new way. And that's with everything to do with your life, your diet. So I would actually start asking questions to myself like, okay, what makes me happy? What makes me feel more passionate about life? What are the reasons I want to keep on living and live every day and live every day with passion? What would make me want to get out of bed every morning? And make sure that you do a lot of things that make you happy so your day isn't just about getting through cancer, and it isn't just about juicing and healing, and the day isn't focused on the cancer. It's focused on you. It's focused on Jess, on pleasing Jess, on making Jessica happy, a happy person, not about getting rid of the cancer.
Yeah.
That should not be the focus.